So I don't know the usual flow here, but let's see. Yes, confidential computing. Okay, yeah. So this is a description of what confidential computing is. Everyone is welcome to participate. We have the Linux Foundation antitrust policy, and this is just a reminder that the antitrust policy applies to all meetings of the Linux Foundation. If there are any questions on that policy, please reach out to us or consult with your legal counsel. Helen, would you like to go over the agenda?
Yeah, sure. So this is the agenda for today. We'll be approving minutes and introducing Mike. Mike will give an update on the Wikipedia. And then we have Kate for events. And then we have travel funding, which Kurt came up with a policy. And we have the analyst report, website, webinar, social media, and any other business. Anyone want to add the agenda? All right, hearing none.
Changes.
All right, so this is the outreach directory. We have quorum.
I see Ben down from Red Hat. Are you an official rep, Ben?
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
And I don't see any new attendees too. So we could just automatically approve the minutes unless if anyone objects. And I'm hearing none. So the minutes are approved. All right, let's introduce Mike. Mike, you have the floor.
Hi. So nice to meet you folks. I know a number of you already. I've been around since the very, very earliest days of the CCC. I was one of the co-founders of NARCS, which was the very first project accepted. I was at Red Hat at the time. I left to found Profion, which was a startup based on NARCS, which we sadly had to close at the beginning of the year due to funding issues. But I'm back, as it were, and I've accepted a position as a part-time executive director of the CCC, basically someone who can do all the things that we all wish we could be doing, but we can't do because we've got real-time jobs. Well, this is my real-time job. 10 days a month is the allocation maximum, unless people want to vote to do more than that. I'm not sure, and that's if I want to do that as well. But a large part of what I'm here to do is to be representing the CCC, talking to members, but also, speaking at conferences, appearing at conferences, going to conferences, speaking to people there, being on the booth, all of those things. And so outreach is very much part of what I hope to be doing with you folks. I know Nick very well. He was one of the first employees of Profion, so he and I know each other well, and I know a bunch of you folks, as I said already. I started about a week ago, and I will be at OSS North America next week. And one of the big things I want to do is talk about how this committee can use me best, how I can be leveraged to make the most of my time and what this committee wants to do. So I've got a bunch of conferences already thought of. I hope we spend some time today looking at the conference list, seeing what I can help with. But I'm basically here to make the CCC happen, grow, etc. So one thing which I quickly is worth saying is I've created a survey which is currently in draft, and I hope to have ready to go out to all members in the next few weeks to find out, what people are happy with, what they would like to see more of, both on technical side, but on the non-technical side as well. What they think we should be doing at conferences. Is it attending, speaking, sponsoring, having booths, etc., etc. And also asking about the research. Should we? How useful was it? And what should the new research piece look like, assuming we're going to do that? So I hope to be collecting some thoughts from more folks. One of the great things about the outreach committee is how many people do get involved, and I'm very, very pleased about that. Would always love to see more, but it's great to see you all here. So I'm gonna shut up. I will speak forever. I've never had a problem with talking, so please ask any questions, but I'll stop.
Really great to
Welcome
have
aboard,
you.
Mike.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Ben.
Welcome, Mike. Yeah, I'm not sure what's needed to be said about this. Does anybody have anything to say about the Wikipedia slide?
Yeah, hey, it's Mike. So the
Okay.
hey, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. All right. Cool. So, yeah. So this was an ongoing conversation among some of the folks who have been working on the Wikipedia project, and one of the specific questions that came up, or a concern that came up, was that column of the VM administrator role in the overall diagram, because there are several use cases that are essentially administrator-less, things like a virtual TPM and other kind of high secure VMs that do not have that role at all. And so after going back and forth with some folks regarding this, we came to the agreement that it is important to show the human element in the overall threat model, but we needed to be able to make a note that in certain use cases that human is not even, there is not that human role at all. So the compromise position that we came to was to add this note to the bottom of the diagram, to the general diagram, that says specific implementations may eliminate the VM administrator role altogether. And that was viewed as satisfactory to all parties.
Cool, seems to make sense. I should note that I've made a couple of minor edits to the Wikipedia page as well.
Okay.
Some punctuation stuff and a couple of just explanatory bits.
Yeah,
you can
I saw
see
your
edits. Hopefully, nothing contentious.
Yeah, no, you're Mike Camel.
I am Mike Camel.
Okay.
The reason I'm Mike Camel, I'm going to put something on the screen, is because I'm very old, and so it's the camel book, the Pearl, my Pearl background. That is me. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's like I'm getting to know all the aliases that are on there, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I know who that is.
It's me. Sorry.
No worries at all. And so that was one of the changes that we made this week. There was, by the way, are we at Wikipedia in the agenda? I don't want to jump the line here.
No, it's first on the agenda.
Okay. So our friends at, well, probably formerly of Oxford, but our confidential remote computing observer, who made a pretty big edit about 2 weeks ago, and we changed it because it was all logged in the criticisms, and it wasn't really a criticism. Well, there was some criticism, but most of it was a use case. And so we took a chunk of it and put it up into the use cases. And then we took the thing that had essentially been a complaint that there wasn't any, that basically that Intel had deprecated SGX in clients, because this person had done, looks like their doctoral dissertation on a usage model that relied on confidential computing in clients. And there isn't right now a confidential computing solution for clients. So we generalized his criticism to say, look, there is no confidential computing currently supported in PC class devices, and added that to the criticism section. which seemed like a pretty reasonable thing, which is take the thing that was a use case, put that in the use cases, take the thing that is a legitimate criticism, generalize it and leave it in the criticisms. Well, a couple days later, they were back and essentially wrote at length about their confidential remote computing use case in not particularly clear language, a lot of jargon, and continued to add to their complaint about the other thing. So we'll work on that. We're going to slowly try and revert that. You accept the contribution, merge it more smoothly into the rest of the article, remove the whining, and then we're also going to have to ask for some citations because they make some assertions of fact without citing a source. Things like ARM CCA is coming soon to a PC near you. And we're like, okay, we've got to, we're going to have to call them out for making factual assertions about ARM's roadmap without a source.
So Mike, if I can help with any of this, do please shout.
Okay.
One of the things that I didn't do because I decided it was immodest was cite my own book. There don't seem to be many book-based references, and it might make sense to cite my book on a couple of places where it is relevant, but I decided it would be, as I said, immodest to do that. I didn't want to step on anyone's toes anyway.
Well, it's Mike, if you wanted to send me a note with what you might want to do, let me talk with Jake, our consultant. He's still under contract with us for a while, and so we can let me ask him what his guidance is on something like that, because we have to tread extremely carefully because we are conflicted editors of this article.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Which is the other reason that I didn't feel I should just put stuff in there without checking. Let's take this. Let's do this off out of this meeting if it makes sense to do that. But as I said, I'm very happy to be involved.
Okay, and then just the other changes that we made this week were because the deprecation of SGX in Intel client processors comes up a lot. It comes up a lot on this page. It comes up a lot on the SGX page. And it's also cited on things like the Rocket Lake page. We just explicitly set it in the table. Back in we have a table in the article about the different hardware providers of the confidential computing technology. So we just said, we introduced it in client in 2015 on whatever Skylake, and then deprecated it in 2021, I think, on Rocket Lake. And it was, and just explicitly put it in the table that because it hadn't been previously, it had just been a reference to a note down at the bottom of the article. So we just said, look, it's here. It was here in client. It was deprecated. That's the fact. And so there's just, Jake and I have got a list of a couple other things that we're going to slowly tweak on, but our strategy is move slowly and cautiously and very, very visibly to not incur the wrath of people who might revert all of our edits because I am a conflicted editor.
That's good.
All right. I will also send a note to Nick saying that we probably ought to, I brought this up last week, or last meeting, but we need to have a discussion about what is the long-term plan for the article. We've got Jake, our consultant, for a few more months. You've got me hanging out doing this, but we probably need to figure out what do we want the CCC's role in this article over the long haul? Do we want to constantly have an assigned Wikipedia monitor and fixer of things? Do we want to continue to employ Jake for services? And do we want how do we want to continue forward keeping it, or do we just let it, let a thousand flowers bloom on our Wikipedia page? But I'll work with Nick to set up a discussion of that maybe next meeting.
Mike, I don't know what the protocol is, but if you see anything that calls out anything related to ARM, feel free to flag me. I'd love to clarify any of those statements. There may be a way to make that more acceptable for the writer, those who are generating the criticism, if it comes from the source, right? To be able to clear those things up. Feel free to.
We could.
I
mean,
to
we could do the guy. We could do the guy a solid and cite him a source or find him a source to back up his assertion if it is in fact accurate.
Yeah, we can help him out. I agree. We can make it look more like, hey, let's clean this section up, and we can focus on the ones that apply to the companies that are a part of this consortium.
Okay. All right, Mark. I'll send you a note, and I'll highlight the assertion that he made.
Mm-hmm.
And then you let me know what you think should be done about that.
Yeah, I'll run it through internally. We'll come back with some feedback. Thanks.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Any other discussion about the Wikipedia? No. All right, we'll move on. I'm not sure what needs to be said here. I believe this is just a reference to the slides and spreadsheet.
So I would love to go through that spreadsheet at least very quickly. A, I've made a couple of formatting changes, which I hope will be helpful. B, to talk about the ones I can go to or where we think it would be helpful for me to go. So first thing is I've changed the date format to ISO 861 because that way there should be less confusion about it because it was in US style. Secondly, I've grayed out the dates which have passed because I thought that was a cunning thing to do. Other than that, no formatting changes. So I will be, as it says on 20 I'll be attending OSS North America. Jeff has just mentioned he's going to be there as well. Great if we knew who else was going to be there. I think there's one which I found which isn't on the list yet, which was FOSSI. I don't know if we care about that or not, but that is in Portland on the 13th of July. And they have a security track. So I will also, I'm speaking at the Confidential Computing Summit. I've taken the slot that Ron had taken for Steve. So I think it's a keynote, 50-minute keynote. So I'll be there for that. Other than that, I'm kind of open to suggestions. And one of the things I want to be doing is working out what companies we need to talk to more, and by geography partly to work out what makes sense for me to go to. But things like I can easily make it open source Summit EU, for instance. That makes a lot of sense. I can make Black Hat, but I can't make B-Sides or DEF CON because my sister is getting married on those days. It seems like not a great one to mess up. So feel free to put my name against Black Hat if we want me to be there. I think it probably makes sense. Other than that, open to suggestions. I think we have talked about security, Cybersecurity World Asia in the past. I think that given the number of Asia Pac members, I think there's a good reason for attending that. Again, even if it's just me, rather than doing a full sponsorship or a booth or anything else. I don't know. I've also submitted 3 talks for Open Source Summit EU. And that's the other thing that I love talking. I'm very happy to talk. And if there are things that we think I should be submitting CFPs for, let's talk about it. Let's discuss that. I've spoken at All Things Open before, for instance, as well.
I love that. I love that. That was one of the recommendations I was going to cover in the RSA recap, but I think Black Hat submission is closed, I believe. But one thing that I realized from RSA is that it would have been awesome to see a talk from CCC covering CCC, but because those kind of conferences, it's the sponsorship is not an option for us. We're not prioritizing that. So.
Spoken at RSA on previous years. I didn't get one accepted for this year. I put it in, it's months ago now, but I didn't get in for that time round. So what I would encourage people to do, and maybe discuss it, maybe not here, we can do it here if we want, but I know we only have a certain amount of time, but maybe on the list is, where do we think it's best to leverage me? I can, assuming budget, and this will not all be coming out of the outreach budget, to be clear, my travel. Some of it will, but it will not all be coming out of there. So that's a good thing to be aware of. Where do we think I could be best used? I can probably go to one long haul a month and, maybe another one in Europe, those sorts of things. I'm based in the UK. So let's talk about those things. But I think, to start with, Open Source Summit, North America, InfoSec Europe is very close to me. Black Hat US, Confidential Computing Summit and Black Hat US, and Open Source Summit EU. That's 5, which are pretty obvious. That takes us through at least to September. But if there are other ones to look at as well, let's discuss it. And if people think I shouldn't be going to things, also shout. I'm not doing this for the good of my health. I'm doing it for the good of the CCC. So let's talk about how you want to use me.
Yeah, and that was the and this is Mike from Intel, but that was the question that I was thinking. It was like, we ought to talk for a minute about how we would want to use Mike at these events, and what because having the CCC show up, what work do we want to get done? What objectives are we shooting for? One, of course, on my mind is just grow the awareness of the category. Confidential computing is still pretty low on people's radar.
Yep.
Not enough people know about it, and so we need somebody out there ringing the bell, letting people know that this category even exists and what it can do for them.
And another thing which I think that I can do is be meeting people from member organizations, particularly senior folks who are going to be there. I've got a nice title, executive director, and talk to them about what this group is doing, the outreach group is doing, and how it's helping, and how we can get, if we've got a C-level person who we could get them to blog, or have someone on the Twitter feed putting out something about confidential computing before one of the speaking opportunities, for instance, anything like that. But just growing visibility within member organizations. So if you've got, senior people or less senior people, engineers, because I'm a techie as well, who you want to talk about these things, let's do that. And also, addressing end user type stuff as we go. I know it's a slightly different group, but raising visibility, speaking. I love speaking. Let me put a link into one of my recent talks, which will give you an idea of my my style. All of those things. But I want to have suggestions from other people. Really, I really do. Thanks, Mike, for starting things up.
Yeah, I'll throw this out as well. One of the things that we really need to keep in mind is that I think speaking is a great way to spread the news. But what we've got to do is get way out in front of where we're at. you know, like you said, Black Hat, DEF CON, those are already closed. I believe Open Source Summit Europe. I think that's still open. It is
It closes today, yesterday, tomorrow. I think yesterday actually, which is why I put 3 in over the weekend.
excellent. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. If we could get where we are routinely looking 6 to 8 months out instead of, you know, next month, that would be a lot better for planning. For Open Source Summit Europe, we do have an opportunity to do a booth or a table and be a low-level sponsor there. Since it is a Linux Foundation event, we do get a discount on that as well. So I think that's a definite opportunity, but yeah, we need to get that rolling if we're going to have a presence there. But yeah, just general comment, if we could start thinking, you know, 6, 8, 9 months out, at least that would really help scheduling all of this.
Okay, so I'm very happy to add and to take on as a task myself to add a couple of columns to this. One of which, well, maybe 3. One of which is the CFP link. The second is CFP closure date, and the third is whether, you know, who's submitted talks to this. Would that be a useful thing to do?
I love that. I think a CFP close date or CFP link and close date would be extremely useful.
And then people can add, you know, if they've put submitted anything to it. Okay, I will give myself that task.
Yeah, that was one of the comments I was going to make, is to add that closing date here, because yeah, you got to plan quite early in the cycle. The other comment I had was I look at some of these, like even this event in Toronto, Cybos, that's just, you know, an hour drive for me. If I can be armed with the latest messaging, like when you go and speak, Mike, at these events, a lot of the content is going to be reused. I'm assuming there's going to be some twists and some changes, but if I can be armed with the information, I'm happy to do a talk, right? To be local and just drive up and do a general talk on the CCC at that event, as an example.
So I think that's another thing we can do is get a particularly because I'm not branded as a member. I'm branded as an officer of the organization. We can get a set of materials which can be reused by anybody, which are which are consortium based rather than member based. If that helps.
Yeah.
No, that
would be helpful. And again, it's thinking ahead of time, right? So if I, like, say I put my name down for this one in Toronto, I need to already be thinking about what the messaging is going to be. We have to create the abstract. We have to then eventually the time comes to present.
So Nick is very good at managing sort of CFP materials. He did that for us when we were at Profion, and I can talk to him about how we might work with that together as well.
Okay.
And I'd love to have some more swag to give out and to wear when we go to these things too. That'd be a nice thing.
I agree.
So do we have a budget's kind of coming up on the list of things to talk about, isn't it? So maybe we should is there anything else we want to talk about for this? I've kind of taken it over. It wasn't my intention. I'm sorry.
All right.
No,
Is there a priority list on those events? Like, are there some that we think we should be at, or is this all of it? Is this everything that we should be trying to have a presence at? And then we should fill in where members can attend.
I think this is yeah, I think this is everything.
I feel like you guys come up with all this list to look for, so we can kind of, you know, keep them under our radar. But I believe the yellow highlighted ones were what we were actively engaging or plan to. So, for example, the one that Cybos, the Toronto one, if, you know, Mark, you end up participating in it, you know, we will probably add that as well. And another thing that actually I was going to say is, Mike, so you see this list, and then because you were in the industry for a while, and then you also see what, we all kind of need to come together to make the priorities as well, right? So
Mhm.
if we're on the right track, like, let us know, and like, let's kind of make it a little bit more concise, because being everywhere would be great. But also we need to be very clear where we're going and what objective we're targeting to achieve at each one.
Yeah, so I think another thing I can do is maybe add another column to this, or have a look around and see, who these are. For instance, the Money 2020, presumably that's aimed at finance, right? ISC Squared is aimed at developers and people who sort of work in the security field rather than businesses implementing sort of end users in some ways, maybe. KubeCon obviously very much based at orchestrations and Kubernetes and CNCF stuff. So maybe it's worth having a think about which of those we want to be targeting it in which ways. But again, it'll depend on the members, you guys, about how, where you feel we want to spend the time. And if people are going to things anyway, that's great. But everyone has real jobs, and particularly, given the current state of the market, I don't want people to be thinking they should be doing stuff which might be seen by their bosses as not core work, right? That's a dangerous thing at this time of the way things are at the moment. So
yeah, you brought a really great point. It needs to be divided by the audience type as well, because Cybus is and Money 2020 is a finance services, and that would be very different than the KubeCon content. And so we need to strategize those messaging whenever we are engaging actively at those events.
Yep. So I'm going to spend some time looking at this list. I've got quite a lot of time on planes on the way to Vancouver from the UK next week, if nothing else, so I can spend some time doing that. But I will try and just add a bit of value to this list, which is already great. And apart from the Fossey one, which I've just put in the chat, is already definitely a superset of the stuff I had listed. So that's really cool.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. So do we need to look at any of these others? Spreadsheet, see strategy slides. Kate, I don't guess that's been updated.
Yeah, I think maybe Mike, you and I can connect with Nick and, and go over this and revisit as you kind of look at this list again. So we'll connect separately, maybe.
Perfect. That sounds good. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah.
All right. So next,
I made it up there, huh?
That
That was my personal picture. Okay. I did make a couple of slides, if I can share.
sure, I'll stop sharing. We'll stop sharing. I will stop sharing. Here we go.
Okay. All right. So first of all, I had a ton of fun, and especially meeting Aaron and Marcus here on the line as well, in person. So that was really fruitful, and being able to interact with people and, leveraging different member booths. I wish we had more members booths that we could have leveraged, but it was still really good to have 4 booth space that we can spread our marketing materials there. And so just to quickly go over the objectives, we were there basically, very unprepared. It was very last minute. We didn't have any customer meetings or any kind of a specific agenda that were planned, but basically to go to raise awareness and then network and leverage our member booths and, spread this, our marketing materials, which we kind of put it together last minute as well. And also to promote the confidential computing summit that we want to attract more end user too. And so with that objectives, created this QR code with some information on confidential computing consortium and as well as the CC Summit. And just have a little snapshot of all the booths. And I'm going to have Aaron and Marcus cover what their experience, because they were working at their booths. But in terms of my interaction with attendees and just going into the networking event and then just randomly throwing and trying to have a conversation around confidential computing. And I definitely noticed the awareness is definitely still ways to go. No one really knew what it was in just the general audience, but the many companies and industries and analysts, I hear that analyst community are wanting to hear more of confidential computing, and kind of surprised that it is not yet gotten much traction as expected. And for those regular industry folks, they might not even realize they were using it already. I don't know, but just the term confidential computing was not very familiar. One thing I wanted to point out, so we had an Intel, my colleague was speaking at Photonics booth, and she gracefully mentioned CCC. So that was very neat. And she asked, like, how many of you heard about or know confidential computing? And out of like these many folks, she did like a couple of times the talk, but all of these folks, like only one person maybe raised hand, and that person is working in that industry or something like that. So it was very, I heard that the awareness, it was kind of the work to do, but it was like experiencing it was really prevalent when I was there. Just to quickly go over the other like talks and what was covered at RSA in general, I would say the AI really, took the center stage of RSA. And, of course, supply chain and with the, AI generated, the generative AI. So there are a lot of demand and then talks around that topics, and as well as geopolitical issues like Ukraine and Taiwan and other ransomwares. And so there are some talks and tracks that are only open to the full pass holders, but if you go to RSA YouTube channel, you can watch a lot of the talks they're posted. And recommendation that I had is, we touched on that a little bit, but maybe we can utilize more of a partner opportunity or joint effort. And I know that, just going and attending and trying to talk to people, it's very hard, and especially they are bombarded and yelled at by all the booths out there. So it's hard to kind of get stick to their brain. But if we were to kind of create a panel session separately, not, if we didn't get the talk at RSA, we can still coordinate something with a partner or, I don't know whoever that could be, but leveraging that effort to bring more people and, target really who we want to go after and do that, maybe do a small meetup. We can allocate that budget, I believe, as well as, participate in speaking, like I mentioned earlier. And also, yes, get specific about target goal, like who do we really need to talk to, who are we wanting to speak to? And I think that needs to be really crystal clear. If we can name like the companies or, who we want to attract, or, those kind of specific items will be very helpful. And Aaron and Marcus, I would like you to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kate. Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Yee. I'm the head of product marketing at Anjuna Security. I worked the booth last week at RSA and just wanted to share a few observations. These are my personal observations. They don't represent Anjuna's views, but I think they're certainly in line with them. So the first point I made that Kate just discussed is that awareness of confidential computing, it's still pretty low, but from my observations, people are starting to hear about it. When I went to RSA last year in June, nobody I talked to had heard of confidential computing. This year, several people who came by the booth said they had heard the phrase. Still not many of them. They had heard the phrase, but they didn't quite know what it was. And so when I explained confidential computing to them, a few of them asked if it was like homomorphic encryption. So it's not the same, but the technologies have the same goal. But it was good to see that people were drawing the connection and being aware of the data use vulnerability. So I would encourage all of us, the vendors, to engage frequently with the analysts to build up awareness of confidential computing, because the more they hear about it and from different vendors and they see customer traction and real use cases, the more they'll write about it. And also, like Mike Purcell and Mike Farron-Jones mentioned, getting figureheads from industry, to speak at events about confidential computing is important. And I would like to see vendor neutral and possibly even consortium presenters at events. I think I only saw one talk about confidential computing on the agenda this year at RSA. Second point is I had a few discussions with managed service providers and GSIs who stopped by the booth, and they wanted to know how confidential computing could enhance their own offerings. Many of them still didn't know what it was, but they wanted to hear, what the technology could do for them. So I had some good discussions with them. Many of the MSPs needed to show their own customers that they could not access their customers' data. So that's good to see them drawing that connection. And it's being driven more by customer demand than by privacy regulations, at least to the MSPs I talked to. The third point I have is piggyback off of the giants. A few times I had to explain that Anjuna isn't the only vendor in confidential computing. I explained how the big players in computing, including the chip makers and the cloud providers, are investing in it in a way that legitimized confidential computing for them. And it can help you in your marketing efforts as you market your own products and evangelize confidential computing. I also mentioned the consortium several times to build validation as well. It helped people to know that there's a rich ecosystem, excuse me, of software vendors, open source tooling and so forth, all innovating in the space. And more importantly, the consortium can be seen as a vendor neutral, agnostic teaching resources that people can trust. And so I've pointed people to the consortium website and the white papers. The last point I want to make that I think many of you are also echoing is use cases. Overall, people are wondering what they can do with the technology, and they're looking for guidance on very specific customer use cases, particularly how others in their own industry are benefiting from it. And it's still early innings, so we're trying to, all of us I think as vendors are trying to gather those use cases and market them. So it's important for us as vendors to be specific and detailed as possible when we talk about what our solutions can do. So those are my observations. Back to you, Kate.
Thank you.
Hey, Kate,
Marcus.
could I make a comment?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Alex Jasinski from Beekeeper. We didn't exhibit at RSA. I was there. I did, we're partnering with Fortanix, and we have discussions with Anjuna, Intel, Microsoft, etc. Anyway, it was very, I would say for sure, I echo everything you both have said, very noisy. I mean, both audibly, but also messaging wise, like, across the spectrum. And it wasn't very obvious from the exhibit where confidential compute fit in necessarily. So, just to echo everyone's comments already, that it's a lot of messaging to go on. But but I did go to the previous week. I was at HIMSS in Chicago, which is a healthcare informatics conference. Again, same basic size, like 50,000 people. Okay, so even less recognition of what confidential compute is, and there's very legitimate and useful use cases for lots of stuff in healthcare, in the entire pipeline of analytics, from generation through deployment, that's just unknown. And so when you look at the conference lineup, it's very tech oriented. But in order for us to get to the final customer, we need to consider these other conferences in finance, healthcare, etc., where we get a presence and show the use cases in those settings, because those end users could then drive their technology organizations to adopt, versus like going to the technology organization directly and trying to get them to find a use case within their organization for it. So anyway, that's kind of our approach to kind of looking at the end user and going in from that direction. Inevitably, we end up interfacing with IT security and all those aspects of it, but we usually try to go through from the use case standpoint. So just bringing that up.
I love that. I 100% agree with you. And I was actually curious. If you don't mind, I can reach out to you to learn more about the hymns. Yeah, I was eyeing on hymns and other things like Cybos and Money 2020. I plugged that in there in the list, and I wanted to get more insight what it's like, because I don't really know, that it's a healthcare conference and finance service conference, and that it would be very different than the security conference that I'm used to.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And my perspective is, I don't come from like an IT security or software background. I came from medical device background, so I kind of come approach it from a different perspective as well.
Right,
that's why
it's really interesting. I really wanted to learn about members who are working in specific areas. So that's the conversations I'd love to have with you and anyone else who wants to have a chat. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm available. Just ping me and we can set something up.
Yeah. So who is this speaking? It's not clear from my.
Alan Shazinski from Beekeeper AI.
Excellent. Very good to meet you. I will put that down someday.
Mike, Mike Brown Jones? Did you have?
Yeah, I was thinking, I put it in the chat. This might be an idea for a future white paper, just playing off what Aaron was mentioning there, which is the idea of the use cases. I hear this a lot too, just in our travels at Intel, and of people like, okay, well, how would I use it? And all of my colleagues have a couple of toss-off lines where we say, well, you could do this or you could do that. I think it would be really good to maybe formalize this and put it into a CCC white paper, where we wouldn't necessarily be giving away any vendor's secret sauce, but we would have a list of 15, 20 different generalized usage models that we could that describe how confidential computing can create value, and they would be general enough that lots of different types of customers could see themselves in that. It's like, oh yeah, I could see where hey, we're in retail, I could see how that could be useful, or we're in healthcare, definitely can see how that might be something that we would want to do. And I think it would be, maybe this is something that I think could float all vendors and grow the whole category without giving away anyone's secret sauce.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we could definitely contribute from our perspective on the use cases we see, kind of generically. And because I agree, like, people don't understand, multi-party compute and confidential computing. Like, what does that mean? How do I explain that to them? We develop collateral to help, explain our platform, but also some of that, how you'd actually make it real. And it would be useful to have more people contribute to that in some way that we could push out. And then, as vendors, we could link to it. It could be on our website, the Confidential Compute Consortium website, but then also use it as a generic communication tool for as we move out into the marketplace.
And whenever we talked about having a set of presentations and stuff, those are the things which are meat and drink to that. Really, really helpful.
Yeah.
All right. Looks like we got an opportunity for another task team here.
Yeah.
I can do a quick chime in here as well. It was great meeting both Kate and Aaron at the show. I was staffing a booth there talking about confidential computing all week as well. And we had 3 confidential computing related releases go out from Google's perspective. So we sort of seeded a lot of conversation points around it. That being said, I like to echo the exact same thing that's already been said, right? The general person on the floor in some cases, good ones, they've heard about confidential computing, but they don't have a good idea of what it is. So we still have a little ways to go there. But on the flip side, to Aaron's point as well, when I started talking about confidential computing a year and a half ago, no analyst even knew what it was. And now every analyst I'm talking to, even in our briefings, are actively asking us about it or including it as a criteria in like a wave or a market guide or something like that. So there's definitely a huge uptick from the analysts' standpoint. And there's even some analysts now that are dedicated to just focusing on confidential computing. What I am hearing from the analysts, though, specifically when they talk to us at least, is that they want to hear some story around sovereignty when it comes to confidential computing. So that might be something we should look at and maybe think about in that white paper as well as one of the use cases. I know there's a lot of legal headaches with going out and talking about that. So, but at least that's what I'm hearing from the analysts per se.
Yeah, I second that.
Okay, well, we have 6 minutes left in the meeting. I'm looking at the remaining slides. We have a bunch of remaining slides. Is there a particular area we would like to focus on here? Looks like Nick has Web Summit here.
Yeah, we'll have Nick to do a recap when he comes back.
He's
Okay.
there right now.
And the CC Summit.
Hey, I had a question about CC Summit. So I remember last time we mentioned the use case contest thing. Has that been announced or published to get submission? Do you know? I'm not sure if Jack is on the call, but. Or do any of you know about this confidential computing award detail?
There is on the next slide, I believe is this what you're referring to?
Okay, has that been? Go ahead.
Oh, use case contest. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted, I thought someone who covered this last time would be on the call and was going to ask more question about it, if that was published on the social media, and because they need to get use cases. It's
I think
so.
Jack Norris from Opaque was presenting this topic last time.
Yeah, I don't think he's on today.
I think there's I don't know if it's a separate effort or the same effort, but Opaque is also asking for submissions for talks, and there's I think like 60 submissions about use cases, and some people on the program committee are actually going through those use cases and reviewing them and scoring them, but I don't know if it's for this effort or for the talks. So it'd be nice to get Opaque to chime in here.
So I will say for CCS, we do have codes for registration. If you are planning on speaking there, please contact me. I'm assembling a list for that.
Do we know for OPEC's side, because I think we need to clarify that what Aaron just mentioned, if that's the same thing, but maybe I'll email Jack and get, I don't know, clarified and share in our outreach Slack channel or something.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on here. Let's see. These are the OSS Vancouver. Right. So for, as I mentioned earlier, OSS Europe, we need to get the ball rolling if we're going to do a booth there. I have been talking to LF Events about that. So please let me know if that is something that we're looking at doing. I also happen to be closely working with OpenSSF, so I can talk to them as well. If we are looking to share, is that something that Nick was driving, or is anyone else know about that?
I do not, but I'll be happy to actually visit with Mike and Nick altogether.
Mhm. Sure, yeah, let me know. I'll be happy to participate with that and, you know, do what I need to do on the Linux Foundation side to get that rolling. Okay. So anything else we need to discuss here? We have a
So I
couple.
noticed that KubeCon in Shanghai is not on the list that I can see.
Oh, on the spreadsheet?
It's not on the spreadsheet. I can't see it there. I may have missed it, but KubeCon North America is, but not the one in Shanghai.
Yeah, I do. I remember seeing Chicago there, but yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's see, travel funding. Yeah, I will say, I think it's actually this slide. No. Oh, yeah, it is this one. Okay. So anyway, it doesn't matter. I am putting together an expense policy and procedure for reimbursement. That'll be a document that will live out in our CCC repo. I'll be submitting a PR for that here shortly. We're growing, and with the outreach and TAC travel budgets in place, we really need some guidelines in place for how that gets spent. And it was, I basically created this starting using the Linux Foundation Travel Fund as heavily borrowed from that document. But yeah, stay tuned. I don't have that out yet, but I expect to get something pushed here shortly, and I will forward that out to the outreach list for review. I'd like to get everybody's comments on it and get comments and corrections going, get everybody to agree on that. Any questions about that?
Nope.
All right. And let's see, travel funding. Is there anything else we need to discuss here? There's a bunch more slides. Right, report research. That's probably a whole nother topic. Website. Okay. Helen, do you know if there's anything else that needs to be specifically touched on here?
I don't think so.
All
We're
right.
at time, so we could discuss the analyst stuff next time.
All right. And of course, feel free to use the mail list if there's anything you need to discuss, you know, before the next meeting. All right. With that,
Thanks, everybody.
that was
Thanks,
a good.
folks.
Thanks.
All right.
See you next time.
Thanks.
Bye. Good to meet you all.
Everyone.